She was standing in my driveway at sunrise like she paid the mortgage, twirling my truck keys around her finger like she'd just won a raffle. Then she looked me dead in the face and said, "This vehicle is in violation, I'm confiscating these." And before I could even process how insane that sentence was, she called 911 and told them there was an aggressive male threatening her. Yeah, on my own property, while she was literally holding my keys. For a second I honestly thought I was still half asleep, like maybe I'd nodded off in my boots and wandered into some fever dream where HOA presidents get deputized overnight. I just stood there with a drill in one hand, an extension cord in the other, watching her perform this little driveway drama like she'd been rehearsing it in the mirror for weeks. Voice sharp, posture stiff, sunglasses on even though the sun wasn't fully up yet. Across the street, blinds started to twitch, a door cracked open, somebody's Ring camera light blinked awake. You could feel it. This neighborhood didn't wake up for birdsong, it woke up for conflict. And while she paced and nodded along to the dispatcher, painting me as some unpredictable menace, I kept one thought pinned in my head like a thumbtack. She had no idea who she'd just called the police on. My name's Clay, and for most of my life, I wore a badge. Not the chest-out, loud voice. Everybody look at me kind, more the steady kind, the long nights, the paperwork, the quiet rooms where people say the truth by accident when they think you're not listening. I retired and moved to Cedar Ridge because I was tired of being the adult in everyone's chaos. I wanted coffee on the porch, slow mornings, the kind of order that comes from peace, not enforcement. Cedar Ridge looked perfect on paper, clean streets, friendly smiles, an HOA that promised structure without drama. That right there should have been my first clue. Anybody who promises no drama is usually the person bringing it in a suitcase. I didn't tell anyone what I did for a living, not because I was hiding, but because I wanted to be treated like everyone else. Just another guy with a mailbox and a lawn mower and a mortgage payment that shows up like clockwork. The funny thing is, when you spend decades dealing with people at their worst, you start spotting patterns the way some folks spot clouds. Tone shifts, power plays, the little petty moves that don't seem like much until you realize they're training everyone around them to flinch. It didn't take long to notice her. In most neighborhoods, people walk dogs. Here, she walked the streets with a clipboard, slow, deliberate, like she was inspecting a crime scene instead of a row of houses. The HOA president, Mara Kensington. Folks didn't say her name like she was a neighbor. They said it like she was weather, like, "Oh, Mara's out," the way you'd say, "Storm's coming." First letter showed up a week after I moved in. Grass height exceeds community standards. I looked at my lawn. It was trimmed, neat, maybe an inch taller than perfect, if you were measuring with the kind of ruler that enjoys ruining people's Saturdays. I shrugged, mowed it anyway. Peace is cheap when you don't argue. 2 days later, another letter, trash receptacle visible from the street for an extended period. Extended period, by the way, turned out to be 11 minutes after pickup. I checked the timestamp and actually laughed, like a real laugh, the kind you do when you're trying not to get mad. Then came porch light notices, wrong color, temperature. One day too warm, next day not warm enough. It depended on how she felt, I guess. None of it mattered. But the pattern did. Small rules. Tight timing. Constant pressure. It wasn't about lawns or trash cans, it was about control. And control is addictive. Give someone a little, they start needing more just to feel normal. I hadn't even spoken to her until one evening I stepped out to grab the mail and found her standing at the edge of my driveway, clipboard open, pen ready like she was about to sign my death certificate. "You're new," she said, not as a greeting, more like a warning. "So I'll explain how things work here. We expect full compliance." Full compliance. Like this was a military base, and she was the commander of curb appeal. I kept my voice calm. "If you have concerns, you can send them in writing." Her eyes lifted slowly, like she wasn't used to that answer. Most people either apologize or argue. Calm refusal confuses people who feed on reactions. "I'm the HOA president," she said. "I don't need to send letters when I'm standing right here." "You do if you want a response," I told her. That's when something shifted. Her mouth went tight, and her eyes got cold, not angry, determined. Like I'd just become a project. After that, the letters changed. They weren't notices anymore, they were accusations. Unauthorized structure visible, about a shed that came with the house. Unapproved activity observed early morning, because I opened my garage at 5:42 like I was plotting something. Suspicious use of tools, which honestly made me want to frame it. Imagine living in America and getting written up for owning a drill. But I didn't blow up. I didn't stomp over to her house. I didn't start a war. I just documented dates, times, copies, photos. Years in law enforcement teaches you a truth most people learn too late: the loudest person in the room is usually the least prepared. Neighbors started acting weird too. Conversations stopped when I walked up. Smiles turned quick. Eyes dropped. They'd learned the neighborhood survival strategy: keep your head down, don't be next. Then one day she caught me unloading groceries. "You're parking too close to the sidewalk," she said, already writing. "It's my driveway," I told her. "The guidelines." "Guidelines aren't law," I said, still calm. She stared at me like I'd spoken in Morse code. Then she leaned in, voice low, like she was delivering a prophecy. "You're going to have problems here if you keep resisting." "I'm not resisting," I said. "I'm just not intimidated." That word intimidated landed heavy. From then on, the letters doubled. Sometimes 3 in a week. She wasn't enforcing anything, she was building a case. And when I got a letter that said, "Homeowner displays a pattern of potential hostility," I felt my stomach tighten, not because it was true, but because I recognized the tactic. That's the kind of wording people use when they're setting the stage to justify something bigger later. When they want to escalate and they need a narrative to carry them there. Her patrols got more frequent. She slowed down every time she passed my house, staring like she could will a violation into existence. And I kept doing what I do: stay calm, stay quiet, keep records, because people like her always cross a line eventually. They can't help it. Control always wants more. I just didn't realize she was going to cross it at sunrise with my keys in her hand. That morning started so normal it almost felt like a reward. Soft orange sky, cool air, everything quiet, exactly what I moved here for. I had planned to fix some trim around my workshop, nothing dramatic, just me and my tools and a couple hours of peace. I walked toward my truck with a drill and an extension cord, set my keys on the hood for maybe 5 seconds, just long enough to adjust my grip. That was all it took. When I turned back, Mara was already there, standing stiff beside my truck, sunglasses on, lips tight, and my keys in her hand. She held them delicately, almost triumphantly, twirling them like a trophy. "Your truck is in violation," she said, like she was reading a verdict. "Violation of what?" I asked. She started listing nonsense: driveway placement, angle against the pavement line, distance from the front setback, stuff that sounded official if you said it fast enough. "My truck is parked in my driveway," I said. "You're new," she snapped. "You don't understand how seriously we take these matters. Until an inspection is completed, I'm confiscating these." Confiscating. That word echoed in my head because it was so confidently wrong. I dealt with actual criminals who had better boundaries than that. "Those are my keys," I said, still calm. "Mara, give them back." Her shoulders jumped like I'd yelled. She clutched the keys to her chest and stepped back dramatically, eyes wide. "You see," she said loudly, turning her head like she wanted the houses to hear her. "This hostility, this aggression." I hadn't moved an inch. My hands were full of a drill and a cord. If that's aggression, then breathing counts as assault. Then she did the thing I was hoping she wouldn't do, the thing that told me she wasn't just controlling, she was reckless. She pulled out her phone and dialed 911. "Yes," she said, loud enough for the whole street. "I need officers immediately. There's an aggressive male threatening me. He refuses to comply. I feel unsafe." I closed my eyes for a second, not anger, disbelief. Because that was the moment she crossed from annoying into dangerous. Weaponizing law enforcement isn't a tantrum, it's a grenade, and too many people toss it without understanding what it can do. Curtains shifted. A porch light flicked on. Someone's screen door creaked. HOA drama spreads fast, but police involvement turns it into neighborhood theater. I didn't argue with her. I didn't step toward her. I set the drill in the truck bed, leaned against the side rail, and stayed quiet. Calmness unsettles people who expect chaos. "You think standing there silently makes you look innocent?" she snapped. "I think standing here silently keeps this from escalating," I said. That just made her talk louder into the phone. "Yes, he's still here. Yes, he's watching me. Yes, he appears confrontational." I was leaning on my own truck like a man waiting for his coffee to finish brewing. While she paced, I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone, quietly, and set it near the wheel well, angled just right, recording everything. Because here's another truth: you don't win these moments with emotion, you win them with evidence. And then the sirens started. Not blaring at first, just distant, sliding into the morning air like a warning. Mara heard them, and you could see her confidence bloom. She adjusted her blouse, lifted her chin, glanced around to make sure the neighbors saw her bravery. In her mind, she'd already won. She thought the cops were coming to put me in my place, the non-compliant homeowner. 2 patrol cars turned the corner and rolled up in front of my house, lights flashing, sirens cutting off as they stopped. Doors opened. Tires crunched gravel. And out stepped Deputy Morgan Young, steady, a man I'd hired years ago. Behind him came Officer Diaz, good guy, a little too procedural sometimes, always thinking 3 steps ahead like the world was a checklist. Mara practically sprinted toward them, clutching my keys like evidence. "Thank God you're here," she cried. "He's been threatening me." He approached me aggressively. "He refuses to comply with HOA protocol." Morgan looked at her, then at me, then back at her. I didn't move. I didn't wave. I didn't do anything that matched her story. "Ma'am," Morgan said carefully, "why don't you take a step back?" "But please be careful," she whispered dramatically. "He's unpredictable." Unpredictable. I hadn't moved more than 3 feet in 20 minutes. Morgan approached me, professional but calm. "Sir, we got a call about an altercation." "I know," I said. "Is there a reason she's holding my keys?" He glanced at the phone by the wheel well, still recording. "Are you filming?" "Yes," I said. "And it shows exactly what happened." Diaz walked up. "Sir, we'll need your ID." "Of course," I said, slow and steady, and handed it over. Morgan opened my wallet and froze. He blinked like his brain needed a second to catch up, then he straightened so fast it looked like someone pulled a string. "Sheriff Mortenson," he said under his breath. "Sir." Diaz leaned over, saw the badge, and his entire posture changed too. Suddenly the air felt different, like the script Mara wrote in her head just caught fire. Mara's face drained of color. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again, like she was trying to swallow the reality whole. "I didn't," she started. "I didn't tell anyone," I said calmly, "because I didn't want it to matter." Morgan cleared his throat, trying to keep it official. "Sheriff, do you want to explain what happened?" And that right there was the twist she didn't see coming. She didn't call the police on some aggressive guy. She called them on the person who signs off on their budgets, their training schedules, their accountability. Not because I wanted power, but because I understood consequences. I told them the truth. She took my keys, refused to return them, then called 911 and lied. And then I showed the video. Diaz watched it, expression flattening as her whole performance played back in cold, simple reality. Her snatching the keys, her accusations, me standing still, her claiming fear like it was a tool. "This is out of context," she sputtered. Diaz didn't even look up. "Ma'am, the video shows him standing still the entire time." Morgan's jaw tightened. "Ma'am, this is not what you told dispatch." "I felt unsafe," she said, voice cracking. "I have the right to feel unsafe." "You do," I said, and I meant it. "But you don't have the right to lie to the police." Morgan's tone went colder. "Taking someone's property without consent is theft. Filing a false report is a crime." And for the first time since I moved in, the whole street went quiet. The neighbors watching from porches weren't entertained anymore. They were witnessing something real. Power getting stripped down to what it actually is: accountability. He asked me, "Sheriff, how do you want to proceed?" Every head turned toward me, like I was about to drop a hammer. And here's the part people don't expect: I didn't want revenge. I wanted the behavior to stop, and I wanted the community to see the line. Because once a line is visible, it's harder for bullies to pretend it isn't there. "I want my keys back," I said. Diaz held out his hand. Mara reluctantly handed them over, fingers shaking, and Diaz walked them back to me like it was an evidence transfer. By that afternoon, the emergency HOA meeting notice went out, mandatory, incident review, leadership discussion. The clubhouse was packed, standing room only, folding chairs scraping, people whispering like they'd been holding their breath for years and didn't know how to exhale. Mara walked in without her sunglasses, without her clipboard, looking smaller, more human, like the costume had been ripped off and she didn't know what to do with her hands. One neighbor stood up and said, "You cited my lawn 5 times this year and called it a safety hazard, and now you're telling us this was about safety?" Another guy shouted, "You fine me for my trash can being out 20 minutes, but stealing keys is procedure?" Then the floodgates opened, stories about photo patrols at night, threats over sidewalk chalk, kids playing too loudly, holiday decorations labeled unapproved cultural displays. You could feel years of quiet resentment turning into something sharper, not rage, clarity. Mara tried to speak, voice shaking. "I thought I was helping. I thought strong rules meant a strong neighborhood." Somebody muttered, "Order isn't control." And she actually flinched, like the truth physically hit her. When the board came back from their closed-door vote, the chair cleared his throat and said, "By majority decision, Mara Kensington is removed as HOA president effective immediately." No cheers, just relief. The kind of relief that makes people's shoulders drop like they didn't realize they were tense until that second. Then, of course, someone suggested I should lead the HOA. I raised my hand. No. The room went quiet again. "I didn't move here to run anything," I said. "And you don't need a sheriff running your neighborhood. If you put all your hope in one strong person, you'll end up right back here. What you need is balance, transparency, limits, a system that can't be hijacked by someone's ego." And that's the lesson I walked away with. One I learned the hard way over decades. Power doesn't always look like violence. Sometimes it looks like paperwork, like a clipboard, like a rule nobody voted on being used as a weapon. And the scariest part is how quickly people adapt to it, how normal fear can become, how a whole community can shrink just to avoid being targeted. The cure isn't louder rules, it's restraint, accountability, and people refusing to stay quiet when something feels wrong. After the meeting, Mara came up to me near the door, eyes tired, voice steady in a way it hadn't been before. "Thank you," she said, "for not destroying me." "I wasn't trying to destroy you," I told her. "Just the part of this that was hurting everybody, including you." She nodded slowly, like she was finally hearing herself think. The next morning, Cedar Ridge felt lighter. Same houses, same lawns, same sky, different air. A neighbor waved without flinching. Kids rode bikes and yelled "Morning, Sheriff," like it was the most normal thing in the world. Someone dropped off cinnamon rolls on my porch, still warm. And for the first time since I moved in, the quiet felt peaceful, not tense. So yes, she didn't lose because I fought harder. She lost because she crossed a line in front of the wrong person, and I stayed calm long enough for the truth to do what it always does: show up, stand there, and make the lie look ridiculous. Now here's what I want to ask you, because this is where people start arguing in the comments when someone abuses a little power like that. Do you believe the right ending is mercy and reform, or do you think real justice means making an example out of them so nobody tries it again? Tell me what you think. Where's the line between accountability and revenge? And if you've ever dealt with an HOA power trip, a landlord, a boss, anybody who used rules like a weapon, drop your story in the comments too. I read them, and I promise you're not alone.